Well, it's now mid-September. I'm coughing like a seal, so that means that fall has begun. And this year, due to the drought, fall has started early. The forest is already changing its colors, and the mushrooms are popping up due to all the rain. So that means it's time to do some mushroom hunting. Welcome to my favorite area to look for mushrooms. This small patch of forest is a gold mine, a veritable gold mine of species. You can find so many mushrooms over here. I mean, we have birch trees, which are great to form a mycorrhizal association with mushrooms. And then we have all the dead, rotting wood that they leave here on purpose to feed all the saprotrophs, the saprotrophic mushrooms, which break down organic matter, such as stinkhorns. And that's why you'll find beautiful mycorrhizal mushrooms over here, Amanitas, boletes, but also the good old stinkhorns. Now let's see what we can find after a week of nothing but rain. People hate the rain, I love it. At least in fall, because that's when we get beautiful little mushrooms. Well, look what I found. My favorites, little stinkhorns, dog stinkhorns, hiding over there in between the beech leaves. You can see that this one has already lost its gleba. The gleba usually is olive brown, that spore mass. And once that has been eaten by flies and such, this orange cap, this orange tip remains. And you can see the egg it came out of. Right there. Beautiful. Well, it's not the easiest part of the forest to navigate through, but all this wood provides so much food for these amazing stinkhorns. And man, I love the smell of a beech forest in fall. Absolutely amazing. Fall, the best time of year. What a lovely morning. It's a lovely Wednesday morning, late September. It's a beautiful, sunny, yet cold day. But we've had a lot of rain this last week. So that means it's time to do some mushroom hunting. I already found a few nice mushrooms a couple of days ago, as you just saw. But now it's time for the Amanitas to grow, especially the fly agarics, the Amanita muscaria. And I've bombarded you with footage of these mushrooms over the last couple of years, but I just can't get enough of these mushrooms. And I suspect you can't either. Hey, speaking of Amanitas, what is this? Well, it looks like what we call squirrel's bread. It's a bolete, I think. The edible bolete, Boletes edulis. It's already decaying. I can smell that ammonia, which is due to the breakdown of this mushroom by bacteria and other fungi. And that gives it that pungy ammonia smell. But it has this typical bolete look to it. We don't see gills, but we see pores, which is typical for the bolete class. So I think these are squirrel's bread, as we call them in Dutch, because squirrels and other animals, they eat from this bolete. And of course we can also eat it. Hence the name edulis, edible bolete. Beautiful. Have a look at this beautiful Amanita rubescens, or the blusher mushroom. This one looks a bit like the panther cap, but this one turns red when you damage it. That's why they call it the blusher, because it blushes. And this one also has a cap that does not have a serrated edge, and the annulus, the ring, is striated, and that is not the case with the panther cap. This is a beautiful Amanita you can find over here in the Netherlands. It's the nephew of the Super Mario mushroom, the fly agaric, which is red, but this one is just as beautiful. And this one is a bit more rare over here than the fly agaric. And of course it lives in symbiosis with the trees, the oaks, the birch trees with which it exchanges nutrients. Such a beautiful mushroom. And next to this beautiful blusher mushroom, we have another interesting species, which is known as the bay bolete. And it's a relative of the other one that I just showed you, the edible bolete. The only downside is that this one bruises blue-gray. When you bruise it, the pores underneath the cap, they will bruise blue-gray, which is often the case with boletes. They discolor when you cut them. But if you cook this one, the flesh supposedly turns white. So you don't have that blue, Danish blue association anymore. And this one is, I believe, quite expensive in kitchens, in restaurants. But I prefer to leave it over here. I love the thick stems of these boletes. They really have that fairy tale leprechaun feeling to them. Beautiful, fantastic. This is a great day for mushrooms. Look what we have here. Have a look. The death cap, Amanita phalloides. A beautiful specimen of the death cap, Amanita phalloides. Now you've probably watched the news and heard about that Australian woman who poisoned her family using a deadly mushroom. Most of them died, and I think one of them lived after a liver transplant. This is the species that was used for that fatal incident, that horrible crime. And if I would consume this mushroom, I would indeed die within 2 weeks. I would get very sick. And this is enough to kill probably 2 grown men. A beautiful mushroom, but if it has a green, yellowish green cap, a smooth cap like this one, you might want to leave it. This is not one for the table. Oh, and over here we have a stinker. A beautiful stinker. Now this one is not as poisonous as that one. But this has a horrible pungent smell. It smells like coal gas, like sulfur. It's bright yellow, and this one is really toxic as well. It won't kill you, but it will make you very sick. But I think the smell will prevent you from eating this. Also a beautiful ectomycorrhizal mushroom, as the Amanita phalloides, as all Amanitas. So they all need this association with oak or other species of trees to flourish. Beautiful. There are so many mushrooms today. I don't know where to look. There's the Phelloides. Here we have false death caps, and those are somewhat edible. That is Amanita citrina. And over here is a stinkhorn, a common stinkhorn, with all the glebe already consumed by the flies. Beautiful. Now this fine specimen is known as the birch bolete. Have a look at how tall it is. Beautiful. Whew. I'm gonna sit myself next to this little stinkhorn. Man, I just wanted to go mushroom hunting for half an hour. I'm pretty tired, so. But then I saw all these mushrooms. Yeah, then I can't leave. Against my better judgment. I know I have to rest, I have to be in bed. But mushrooms, they come and go pretty quickly, so I know from experience that once the mushrooms have popped up, you gotta be quick. Because sometimes you've got a week of rain and then you've got a dry period and the mushrooms will wither and die. So this is the best week. Everything is here. The Amanitas, the stinkhorns, all sorts of mushrooms, all the classes, everything's here simultaneously. Because the rains didn't come in August, they came late September. So that's why we have only one big wave of mushrooms. Or at least so far we've had only one big wave. And this is it, so I had to be there. It's time for a cup of tea and an apple. While enjoying the smell of that stinkhorn next to me. Oh well. And so for the last couple of years I've been doing a lot of time lapses. And this year I wanted to do things a bit differently. So I think I'll do some less time lapses this year. And I'll try some other creative shots. Using this slider. It's just a cheap mechanical slider. And I'm going to use this one and see if I can make some nice shots. Some nice sliding shots. Moving away from these mushrooms. I wanted to buy a probe lens for this. Such as a Laowa probe lens. But those are pretty expensive. So I'm just going to use the Pocket 3. Which I'm using right now to film myself. And I'm going to put it on this slider and see if I can get some nice cinematic shots of these beautiful Amanitas. I almost spent 2 hours in the forest this morning, so I'm going to pay for that one, I think. But it was worth it, I think, so. Because it didn't rain in August, we now have this huge wave of mushrooms in September. So now I suddenly have got a lot of work to do. But I should not forget to actually enjoy the mushrooms instead of just recording them, because recording them is not the same as seeing them. To do that, to see nature, you really have to take your time. So sometimes I gotta turn off all my cameras and just take it all in, take in the moment. Such as this beautiful moment in the forest. So I'm going to turn off my camera. Now this is a beautiful October morning. It's now October 1st. We've had a very dry week. But still, maybe we can find some leftover mushrooms. At any rate, saw some beautiful birds today. A beautiful buzzard when I drove in. Absolutely gorgeous. Can't get enough of buzzards. Despite the drought, there are plenty of mushrooms. Look at these. Now these mushrooms are known as brown roll rims, and these are gilled mushrooms, and they are quite common. But what is so interesting about these gilled mushrooms is that they are quite closely related to boletes. And of course boletes have pores underneath the cap which release the spores. These mushrooms, like Amanitas, have gills. The fascinating thing is that underneath the cap, where the spores are, you can find pores around the stem, like boletes. But higher up, along the cap, on the underside of the cap, we find gills. So they have gills and pores. So in terms of their morphology, they seem to be stuck between gilled mushrooms and boletes. So that is a fascinating aspect of these mushrooms. And of course the taxonomy of fungi is very difficult, and that's why scientists increasingly use DNA rather than morphology to classify mushrooms and fungi. Now look what we got here. My favorite mushroom, the fly agaric. And here we can see them in various stages. Old, middle and young. I mean, come on, have a look at them. I just can't get enough of the fly agaric. To me, this mushroom remains the archetype species which symbolizes fall, autumn. Absolutely beautiful. Look at what we got here. A fairy ring. And now, as I told you in other episodes, mushrooms, they are produced by mycelia. And the mycelium is the fungal body which lives in the soil. And sometimes these mycelia are round. And when they fruit, when they start to produce mushrooms, they sometimes produce mushrooms around the periphery, around the edge of the mycelium. And this leads to a ring structure. And these were often called fairy rings. Or in Dutch they would be called witches' rings, because people would associate these rings with magic and the occult. But of course it is just the fruiting bodies being produced around the periphery, the edge of the circular mycelium that lives in the soil. It is beautiful though. It does have that fairy quality about it. Now let me tell you a little story about this one. This is known as a russula. Now you can find a lot of russulas over here. such as this little one, for example. And it has a reddish, pinkish cap. And people sometimes confuse these russulas for Amanitas, fly agarics, for example. And the fly agaric can be edible if you cook it properly. But the russula is just not really edible. I think even after you cook this one, it is still quite poisonous and you can get very ill. So if you're in doubt, don't pick it, don't cook it, don't eat it. Now the russula can be quite easily distinguished from the fly agaric. Fly agarics usually have spots on their caps, which are remnants of the partial veil, which was the veil that encapsulated the mushroom when it was still in its egg, its devil's egg. But russulas never have these spots, so that is one way to distinguish them. And I don't think they have a clear skirt. Amanitas usually have a nice skirt. These russulas don't really. So if you don't see any spots, it could still be an Amanita, which has had its spots washed away by the rain. But if it has spots, at least you know it is not a russula. It will not be a russula emetica, such as this one. And emetica literally means vomiting, to vomit. And this will make you vomit. So, and again, when in doubt, just admire mushrooms in the forest and just leave them be. And go to the supermarket to get your gourmet mushrooms. And then you won't get sick or you won't die. It's like the saying, all mushrooms are edible, but some you only eat once. Hey, this is interesting. This is the, let's see, I think it's Amanita citrina, which is the false death cap. This is edible. It has that moldy potato taste. It's not really that nice to eat, but at least it won't kill you. This one was dug up from the ground, maybe by an animal, a dog. But I can show you some of the anatomy of this mushroom. So this is the vulva, the lower part of the egg, which enveloped this mushroom. And it's still young, it's still growing. But over here you can see the partial veil, which later will, as the cap expands, will tear off. And then this little veil, this veil will become a skirt around the stipe, around the stem. And these spots are remnants of the complete veil, the total veil, which was on which covered the top side of this mushroom. And if you remove the partial veil, this little skirt or to-be skirt, you can see, of course, all the gills which have the spores. A beautiful Amanita citrina. So that veil that was underneath the cap of that young mushroom, that partial veil is now there. It's now the skirt. And this covered the gills, the spores, when it was still in its egg. And skirts, they are a very important anatomical feature that allows people to distinguish different species of mushrooms from one another. Wow, it is really fly agaric time. Look at this one. This one was already broken, that's why I picked it up. I wouldn't usually remove this from the soil, such a beautiful specimen. Now that is a fly agaric with its typical spots on the cap, remnants of the total veil enveloping this mushroom. And it has that clear annulus. Those seem to be dog hair, so I guess it's a dog that dug it up. And of course the leaves on its cap reveal the nature of its symbiosis with oak, amongst others, and birch. So we have an oak leaf and a birch leaf, a couple of birch leaves. And birch and oak are typical species of trees that live in symbiosis with the fly agaric. Beautiful. And this is my favorite mountain bike trail. And the fly agarics are all over the place on this trail. Well, I was about to wrap up this episode and then I came across this edible bolete, this Boletes edulis. Now my hands are pretty big, so the reference is pretty poor, but have a look at this one. This is almost the size of a dinner plate. You could really make a nice big meal out of this one. And you can see those yellow pores over here. Typical bolete. Well, I hope you enjoyed this mushroom episode. I certainly enjoyed making it. It's now mid-October and fall is in full swing. And this really is the best time of year for me. All the smells, the colors, the mushrooms, the fallow deer, the rut, it's amazing. So I would suggest you go out there and enjoy fall. It really is the best time of year. Thank you for watching and I hope to see you in the next episode. Bye.